Hi everybody, welcome back to our crazy unscripted life. Tonight we decided we're going to make a warm pot of stew. That's one of Bob's favorite things in the world. I found a recipe for a chicken tortellini soup that I had saved in a cookbook for years and had never made. And I made it a few weeks ago and it was a hit, so we thought we'd share it with you today. We're going to start off by getting our pan nice and warm. We're going to add some olive oil to the pan, and then we're going to chop up some veggies. The recipe calls for celery, just a couple of ribs, but I happen to like celery in my soups, and so I usually go a little bit overboard. I have already washed and cleaned the celery really well before we started the video, just so that you don't think I'm putting dirty celery into our soup. It doesn't have to be really fine, but I don't like it too big. I like to make uniform pieces so that my soup will cook evenly and everything will be cooked to the proper softness at the same time, or pretty close at least. These cutting boards, they're flexible so that you can just drop all of your food in when you're done. They are kind of firm, so I have accidentally popped them and had my food go flying, but hey, it just adds a little fun to the cooking, doesn't it? I have grown to prefer the carrots that come straight out of the ground and are not cleaned, not these baby carrots. But these were the perfect size, and I wanted to make this a quick and easy soup, so I went ahead and picked them up this morning and figured since I'm going to use them right away, it'll be all right. I don't like generally to use them this way because of the fact that they tend to get slimy. I don't know if you've had that happen, but they tend to get slimy when they sit in the package for more than a day or two after you bring them home. So I much prefer to use the carrots that just come whole and uncleaned, and then I peel them and wash them and cut them up for my recipes. I especially like them when I'm roasting because I feel like they hold up better and give you a better crunch after they have completed their roasting. I just cut these in half. I'm going to slide them into my pan and let them get to sauteing. There's one I missed. And they call for, I think, 3 carrots. I typically just put vegetables into my liking when I'm making a soup. There are some things we prefer more of, and there are some things that we might not care too much to have a lot of in our soups. So I'm just gonna use a little more than half this bag. I'm just kind of figuring as I go, so bear with me. I think one of the things that I enjoy most about cooking is just the fact that I can make something at home that is a little healthier for my family because I know all of the ingredients, I know what's going in, I know if there's any kind of extra fillers going in, and I can control the amount of sodium. I like being able to substitute an ingredient when I'm missing one that's in a recipe. And over time, if you're not a cook, over time you will learn how to substitute ingredients in recipes. There have been times that I have been making something that called for milk, and honestly I just upped a little bit of the flavor maybe in chicken broth or maybe a little extra butter and then used water in place of that liquid, and it came out truly fine. There's no need for you to rush to the grocery store every time you see that there is something that is not available for you or you don't have in your house. I'm chopping up a pretty good size medium sweet onion here. I do not like raw onions in any way, shape, or form, but I love onions when they're cooked in my soups and in my Italian dishes. And I grew up with family members who loved Vidalia onions, and so the sweet onion has just always been one that I enjoy. So I like to get them in 3-pound bags. I picked them up at Walmart. I found that to be my favorite place because they have smaller onions that I can use per recipe instead of trying to buy a huge onion and cut it up and put it in a container. Again, I don't like the fact that sometimes they dry out or might get a little slimy as they sit. Let me get my handy dandy spatula here and just get these stirring around a little bit more. At this point, we'll add a little bit of garlic. I did add a little bit more olive oil to my pan. That was about 2 teaspoons of garlic. I added a little more olive oil because my vegetables were still a little wet from the washing, and it's taken them a few minutes to start to soften and brown up. Right here is a good point to mention that while I was looking at my recipe earlier, I realized that I did not have any more spinach in the freezer. I had some spinach that we bought in a bag fresh for some smoothies and for salads, and when it started to go bad, I decided to put it into little baggies, and I froze it that way, and I have found more uses for it in soups like this, and we have really enjoyed having it, but I realized I didn't have any. So no worries, I'm not going to run to the store just for spinach. It does add a little bit of flavor. It adds a little bit of color to this otherwise kind of pale soup, but it's not a big deal. So at this point, once your vegetables have started to soften a little bit and you're comfortable with where they are, you can add in that spinach and give it a few minutes to wilt down and start to saute a little bit before you move on to the next step. I think these are pretty good. They've been sauteing for about 10 minutes now. There's no brown on them or anything, but we'll go ahead with our next few steps. I'm going to add 2 cans of cream of chicken soup. I have used any brand. I've used the store brands, and I find that I do prefer Campbell's a little bit, but again, if you don't have it on hand, it really doesn't make a huge of a difference when it's not the main ingredient. In this particular recipe, we've got the onions and the garlic and the vegetables, and we've also got some chicken stock and things like that that are going to add other flavors. So this will just be a thickener and a nice base. I just love the creaminess this lends. I like using this soup as well because it doesn't seem to have the same effects as too much milk might have in a soup, where it can kind of be too heavy for some folks. So this just lightens it a little bit. The recipe calls now for 2 soup cans of water. So just get those and add those in, and then we'll stir it up real good. Going to get this stirred in a little bit, and then we're going to add some chicken broth. I thought I had a container of chicken broth, but we used it the other day. So what I did was I picked up some chicken base, chicken bouillon, if you want to say bouillon powder. Picked it up down in Amish country the other day, and I just measured out the water that it called for. Okay. So we are going to add chicken to this once this starts to come together. And I am not, it's probably just me, I probably just can't do it right on the stove, but chicken is one of those things that it's either underdone or it's too dry and tough for me. I tend to cook it too far because I don't ever want anybody to get sick, and I've just never been good at cooking it on the top of the stove. So what I have found is my favorite way to cook chicken is to put it in the Instant Pot. I put it in frozen and put about maybe a cup of water, and then I put a teaspoon or 2 of bouillon or chicken broth powder in with it to season it. And then if I have time, I let it do a natural release for at least 10 to 15 minutes. And then I've got some broth to put into my soups that has all of the richness of that chicken base, but it also has the chicken flavoring and some of the, maybe the nutrients that would have cooked out of it. So I did that earlier, and I had 2 cups of broth left that I poured into my big measuring cup here. And then I finished it off by adding some water to get it up to 4 cups. And then that was about 2 cups of water I added. So I added about 2 teaspoons of my chicken base so that this would be a true chicken broth. But you can see it's got some of the chicken bits in it. You can see some of that chicken fat. It's really going to impart a lot more flavor than just a plain chicken broth out of a container. So this is 4 cups, 32 ounces of chicken broth we're going to add in. And that will, along with that water we put in, will help to thin the chicken soup down and just give it a nice creamy base. At this point, we just let it boil for a little bit, and then we add in our chicken. I have my chicken over here. I have not taken it out of the Instant Pot yet. I'm gonna go ahead and get that out. And the beautiful thing is when you cook it in the Instant Pot, it is so tender. It's really hard to get out of the Instant Pot because it just falls apart. So these are relatively skinny. I just picked up some chicken breast from Aldi and put about 4 of them. There were 2 that were medium and 2 that were pretty good size, but they're, again, you can see they're very thin. So it's not a whole lot of chicken. That's another thing I like about these kinds of soups is that you can really base your ingredients on what you have on hand. If you only had 1 chicken breast, or if you had a chicken breast maybe left over from dinner last night, or you had some rotisserie chicken left over, you can just add what you have and then add maybe a little more vegetables to it to give it that thickness and richness that you're looking for and make it hearty enough to feed your family. If you always base it off the recipe, you will rarely find that you have enough of each ingredient. So it's nice to be able to just find a way to work around that and make it more cost effective for your family and keep you from running to the store all the time. Whenever I have a list and go to the store, I feel like I save so much money, and then throughout the week I'll run and get the 1 or 2 things I forgot. And you can't just run in and get one thing, especially if you go to Walmart or to Aldi. And so I always end up spending so much more than I would have spent had I just found an alternative, a way to make the soup without the ingredient that I didn't have readily on hand. For instance, today I made the chicken broth because I realized after I decided to make it that I didn't have a container like I thought I did. I didn't have my spinach. And so we just kind of rolled with it and made it with what we have. It doesn't call for it, but I did pick up some freshly shredded Parmesan today, and I figure that I'll add a little bit of that in. And I also wrote in that last time I made this, the first time I actually made it, at the end it was just a little thinner than I like it, so I put between 1/4 and 1/2 cup of half and half. You can use heavy cream or milk or whatever you have on hand, but I liked the edge that it gave it. It wasn't too much dairy, but it was just enough to give it a really nice smooth flavor at the top and a richness that you don't have without it. I'm just going to let this simmer for a little bit longer. It'll be ready to serve. We picked up some delicious fresh bread from the Amish country the other day, and we're going to put some spreadable butter on that and just relax this evening with a warm bowl of soup. We're here in the Midwest and we've got storms coming in over the next 3 days, so this is just a good thing to have on hand when you're having cold, blustery days and you're snuggling in the house, or even when you get out and work in this. 2 of my family members work outdoors in the cold. I work in a cold warehouse, so it's very nice to come home and have something comforting like this left over for tomorrow for lunch or even for dinner again. I hope that you'll try this soup, and you'll have to let me know your thoughts. If you add something different or if you have a different take on this, I'd love to hear it. Oh my goodness, I forgot the most important part. Once you let this boil a little bit and everything gets soft, you add in tortellini. I forgot the most important part. This is chicken tortellini soup, so creamy tortellini soup I think is the technical name. So once this comes to a boil, I will put these in. I like to buy them when they're vacuum sealed like this because they truly just take a few minutes to boil. And if you've not cooked tortellini before, typically when you put it in, you just leave it until they come to the surface. And once they rise to the surface, they are fully done and ready to eat. I hope that you enjoy this soup and that you enjoy this video. If you do enjoy cooking videos and watching videos like we've made tonight, feel free to click the like button. Be sure to subscribe to our channels to follow our crazy unscripted life. We will have everything from woodworking to cleaning to cooking and just a little bit of traveling thrown in, some food inspiration for on the road, and we hope that you'll enjoy coming along on our journey with us. I added, like I mentioned earlier, about a 1/4 cup of half and half. I just added until I liked the way that it looked. You can add salt and pepper at the end. And I also got some Parmesan, like I mentioned. If you left out the chicken and maybe made your own chicken soup, like a cream of chicken soup, you could totally make this a vegetarian dish. I think with the cream of chicken soup in the can, you get bits of chicken, so it wouldn't truly be a vegetarian dish, but this would tick off all the boxes for a yummy vegetable soup. It would give you enough nutrition and heartiness without having the chicken if you didn't prefer. We're gonna put these in these awesome little soup koozies that my mom made for us. We love them, we use them all the time. Just gonna put just a touch of Parmesan on the top to finish this off and just give it a richness. I think the spinach would have been so pretty in it. It would have brought out the greens, but you can see a little bit of herbs from the chicken broth, the chicken base that we made the broth from, and also from the celery and the beautiful pop of those orange carrots and just the broth itself, the yellows and golds. It's just gorgeous. I cannot wait to dig in, get some of that fresh Amish bread and some butter, and we are out of here. Bye.